All right, Dad. Thanks for spending a couple minutes with me here. It's 11:40 a.m. on Thanksgiving 2018. Glad to be together, and I've got some interview questions. So, first one is, tell me what your childhood was like.
It's pretty good, except the tragedy of my twin brother dying at the age of 12 in a gunshot accident from the neighbors. Pretty good. Got kicked out of the first grade for fighting.
What does kicked out mean? Does that mean suspended for a little while?
I was going to a private school, and they said, you can't come back. So I went over then to Washington School, which is a public school, and got going pretty good. It was one of those schools where it was close to the shoe factory.
Yeah.
And we lived close to the college, but it was a different school, and it got going all right.
And this was all in Cape Girardeau.
Cape Girardeau.
What was your address at your earliest remembrance?
Well,
you were on Curry Lane. You were not on Curry Lane.
No, 537 Alta Vista, which was in one block away from the college. And before that, we lived on Bessie Street next to my grandparents. And I don't know the number of that one. But shortly after I was about 4 or 5, we moved from there to up on the hill to Alta Vista.
Okay. So prior to Ernest's tragedy, life was good and I'm sure relaxed. What was it like after that? Did that just put your mom and dad in a tough spot? Was it just a emotionally rough time for them, or what?
I think it was a tough spot for everybody. I'm trying to phrase that. We all put that behind us. I think, although my parents, it was very difficult for them, I think. I remember I went to the movies with my mother to see Robin Hood, and my brother went out with a neighbor's kid and got a loaded shotgun and didn't know what to do with it, and they blew his liver off.
Were they hunting or just screwing around?
They were just jumping around, it's a bunch of weeds.
Shame. It is tragic.
He was not identical, but and he was much bigger than I was. I was a small kid. He was big. He's a good guy.
So Uncle Leo was a twin, you were a twin. Are you surprised that we haven't had another set of twins around? I'm surprised.
Wouldn't you? It
I'm
happens
surprised.
185 times. Usually it's on the paternal side, but it didn't happen this time.
It hadn't happened yet. What were you like in high school?
I was a nerd.
Well, you played
I finished
tennis.
first in class almost every year.
Yeah.
I was the business manager of the high school paper.
Okay.
I didn't have dates. I didn't go to parties. I visited the barber shops, the chocolate shops, and beat them out of ads for the paper. It was a very nice time. I really enjoyed that.
Good memories of high school then.
I had good looks at math, and I remember I could work the problems that the teacher couldn't work.
Wow.
And that was always interesting to me because I thought she should have been better. But she was a nice lady, Mrs. Williams, a very nice lady.
So Granddad,
Coach Miggy,
huh?
we had a coach who thought any guy worth his sin would play football. And I went out the first day and they ran over me and I said, Coach, I need a tennis racket. And I never went back.
Enough of that.
Yeah.
So Granddad didn't go to school, but somewhere along the lines he was a trained engineer. He self-taught?
He did. He self-taught. He took night courses. I have some of his books here still on flow. But in 1920, after he left he was a private in the Army, World War I. He went to work at the Little River Danes District and worked for the next 60 years, or 60 years.
For the state?
No, the Little River Danes District was a separate government entity formed by the farmers of southeast Missouri from Cape on down the Arkansas line. that was all a swamp. And it was useless. We had mosquitoes everywhere. There was nothing between there and Memphis because you couldn't stand it. There was so much malaria. But they decided how to drain it. It was very difficult to figure out how to drain it because they issued bonds to do it to people in New York, and they sent engineers down and nobody could figure out how to do it. But then a young Purdue graduate named O'Brien came in 1916, and he figured that he couldn't drain the swamp, but he could keep all the water from running into it, from all the creeks around, and he diverted them all, and it was successful. They eventually, during the Depression, went broke, but they paid all the bonds back later. And it's still going. They're still running the show because they have to keep the ditches open to keep that water from Whitewater Creek, Casher River, St. Francis, and I think even, not Black River, but there was another river. They diverted all that water into the diversion channel, and it never got into southeast Missouri.
And that dried up the land, they farmed it.
Well, they dried it up enough that they could farm it and make a lot of money. It was before that, it was filled with cypress trees, which they just cut like Himmelberger Harrison Lumber Company just cut that stuff like crazy. I think in retrospect, if it had been left alone, there'd been some great duck hunting there, but the towns of Advance, Sykeston, on down towards the Arkansas border, Bernie, would never have existed.
Now, Granddad lived a very full life to nearly 90, right?
Yep, he was just a few months short of being 90.
But your
Painted his
mom,
garden one week, had a little chest pain. I brought him up here, and he died within 7 days.
but your mom, when I was young, maybe it was 1968, something 69, somewhere around there. I was 2 or 3 or 4. She died. What got
Died
her?
in 73. I think that's correct.
Really? Okay, so I was older.
I can run the next room and give you that date.
It's all right. I was 7 or 8 then. What got her?
Cancer of the ovary, spread, widespread.
Did they catch it
And it's
late,
still
or
bad.
they just didn't catch it, or
We
it's just
operated on her, but when the surgeon got in, it was just all over in her liver, and he just closed her up, and she never survived the surgery. She just, I think she had, people with ovarian cancer are prone to get diffuse clots, coagulopathy, and I think she just started clotting off her blood vessels and probably had a pulmonary embolus, because I remember she was very short of breath the last few hours. A tragedy.
How would your mom and dad have described you, if they were here, if I asked them?
I was crazy. I'm sure they thought about that. I ran away from home once. Didn't get far. But it was different. I didn't get beat on much. I think my dad was very kind to me. And so was my mother.
Yeah. Was your mom trained in any career? Was she a school teacher or anything?
She was a school teacher, interesting enough, up here at Ferguson. And she had a sister named Mary, and her father, Edward A. Caton, wanted to get those girls married off when they get to be 18. Well, they had to wait a few years, but I still remember reading his notes and so forth. He wanted to marry those daughters off.
You want them off the payroll.
But the Depression came on. Grandma Caton was a very active member of the Library Association in Cape. And she sort of been depressed. He died in 1933, and I don't remember him at all. Of course, I would have been only 2 years old at the time. But he was very large, and I'm sure myocardial infarction got him. But probably the Depression, too, was a factor because he had sold a lot of life insurance to people, and that insurance company went under.
Oh.
And that hurt him and Grandma, too.
That is rough. When you When you think about a fork in the road in your life, what was it and why did you choose the particular path you chose?
The fork in the road was the death of my brother. Now, Gus Schultz, my other grandfather, was a big Republican, a very big. He was a notary public. He married people, and I remember when I would be in his office, I would grab the marriage certificate and run over halfway across town to Quill Reed, the recorder of deeds and whatever. He would write something in a book, and I'd run back, and Grandpa would say, "They're now married," and
That was it.
that was it.
That was your job. Well, you mentioned the death of your brother being a fork in the road.
Yeah.
What impact did that have on you?
It made you
long term?
tough.
Makes
You
you tough.
realize this damn life is going to get you, and you just made you tougher.
Okay. What happy memory will you cherish forever?
Going to the cabin was probably my happiest at the time. Every summer, going out there, and when I was about 13, I started catching a lot of fish, and I got good at it. And
Mostly on
when I was
minnows?
about, 24, 25, Dad asked me if I would shoot a deer for Mama. And I knew where they crossed down at the, above the first hole.
Mm-hmm.
I was down there 10 minutes and shot one with a rifle slug, because we didn't have any heavy guns then, but we had an old
Shotgun.
20 gauge.
Well, you did what your dad asked you to do. You
Yeah.
put some meat on the table. When you were fishing back then, was it mostly minnows? You didn't have
I
artificials?
fished with minnows. Nobody fished much out there at the time. No one ever hunted, by the way.
Really?
And I started going below the shut-ins, and Uncle Leo thought that was the end of the world. There were dragons down there. And I went way down below there, and it was fun. That was fun. And Uncle Leo was a lot of fun playing pinochle.
Yeah, he was great.
Good Sherman.
Just
Leo was the head of school superintendent in Carroll, Illinois, and Louis, his twin brother, and I think they were identical, was school superintendent in Cape Girardeau.
huh?
They were nice.
Do you see, just along that line of fishing, do you see a big change? I think I do, but I wasn't there. When you were young, what you were catching versus what you'd catch today in that stretch of water?
It's down. We used to catch a lot more fish than we do now. And I don't know if it's the flooding or the lid. I don't know what it is. But we certainly caught more bass then.
Yeah.
We would catch enough bass every day to fry up. Now it'd take you a week at least to catch enough, and you wouldn't catch many.
Is it true that Uncle Leo would keep everything, didn't matter what size?
What?
Would Uncle Leo keep everything, bass of any size?
Well, yes, he did, because he fried them up. He did. Everybody minnow fished, and I remember my brother came out there with me one time and said, after World War II, he said, "Let's try some plastic minnows, plastic worms." They were terrible, old rough-hewed things, but they were purple and they worked.
Yeah. Now, Granddad referred to the cabin as the battery or the camp. I remember those two terms.
Well, they refer mostly to the battery because that was where the Civil War battle was fought. I think in 1864, when Sterling Price came through there with 12,000 Federals. Now, he'd split his troops up, though. He was going to attack Ironton. He sent Shelby over up towards Doniphan. He came up through from Patterson after attacking Fort Benton. And then Fagan, his other general, came up through Fredericktown, and they all coalesced then at Ironton. But they were slow in getting it together. He wanted to attack St. Louis, but by the time he got all together, the railroads, Grant had sent enough troops in that he couldn't attack St. Louis. So he decided to attack Ironton. And then he unfortunately was delayed there for 3 days, and he let the Federal troops get away at night, and they chased him all the way over to Rolla. But by that time, the Federal troops had been come by train, and so he just had to leave the state. And at the end of the time, he was being court-martialed by the federal government. The only thing that kept him from probably being shot was that the war was over. He was pretty incompetent, though. There was a huge obelisk to him at St. Louis at the big funeral site. I'm trying to remember. Sherman is on the Protestant side, and I think Sterling Price was about 100 yards over on the other side. He wasn't a good trainer, and he got so fat at the end he couldn't hardly ride a horse.
Okay. I had some great times. I have many fond memories of spending time with Granddad, especially at the cabin. Did your mom like it at the cabin?
I think she did. She liked it when her grandchildren were there. But I built an addition to the old cabin and put an indoor toilet in,
Yeah.
and that she did appreciate.
She did.
She did indeed.
All right. I was named after your brother, and I was coincidentally born on your birthday. Was there a second choice or another name that you thought of for
No.
me? Huh?
No,
Okay.
there was no choice.
Growing up, who inspired you the most?
Let me think about that. Ms. Williams was very good. She was a math teacher, and also she ran the school paper. And she and I worked a long time together, 4 years.
Was she at the high
A.C.
school?
McGill, one of the professors of chemistry, and I guess Homer Boland, professor of biology. Those were the main people. Arla Harris was nice to me. She set me up to start collecting stamps, which I still do to some extent.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else might have been. No, I'm not sure much inspired me at that time.
If you had to do it all over again, would you pursue the same career path?
I think so.
Medicine's done
think
well
so.
with you.
Yeah.
What's your biggest regret?
I have nothing but regrets.
What's the biggest one or two?
Not taking my brother with me to the movies, but probably one.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't think at the time anything we could have done for my mother's ovarian cancer would have made any difference, because it was almost 100% lethal. The only symptom before you get it is you feel a little bloating, you lose a little weight, and by the time you open them up, it's spread everywhere. And that's still a problem with ovarian cancer. There's no good blood test. You can scan for it and so forth, but you can't scan everybody. It's a shame.
All right.